Hi, my name's Lisa Brown and I'm the Managing Director of Coastal Case Management. I'm also one of the directors at the CMS UK. Thank you for listening to our virtual conference today. I hope you've enjoyed it. I was asked to sum up today with a reflective piece on how COVID-19 has impacted on catastrophic injuries. Catastrophic injuries, just by its very name, tells you that it's a catastrophic injury, it's life-changing. And COVID-19 has impacted on the lives of so many of our clients. I thought that I would share some personal experiences of how it's impacted on our team, how we as a team have got over some of the issues and the dilemmas that we've been faced with. And actually, I want to really focus on some of the positive side of things and things that I hope will change the practice of case management forever. I think if I talk about case studies, I think we need to share stories that are real, that are meaningful, and something that we can all learn from. And for me, we are involved in a case where a lady had a catastrophic injury, went to hospital, and sadly contracted COVID-19 whilst in hospital. Quite a complicated case for the solicitors to sort out, as you can imagine. So she was an above-knee amputation, or she sustained injuries that meant that she needed to have an above-knee amputation. Because of the COVID-19 protocol, she was discharged from hospital to a community hospital, and there was no visiting. And as you can imagine, the trauma involved in waking up from intensive care, being told that you've got an above-knee amputation and that you've contracted COVID-19 was incredibly stressful, not only for the patient, but also for the family. The family weren't able to visit her. They couldn't get any information from the hospital because the hospital was so busy. My client was transferred to a community hospital, was given some rehabilitation, which was quite limited, and she was very confused. She was elderly, had a lot of trauma to deal with. There was no psychology going into the hospital because of COVID-19 and the restrictions. She was seeing people with face masks, and she just found the whole thing incredibly overwhelming. And she was then told very quickly that she was going to have to go to a nursing home. And I think for me, that has to be one of the most powerful things that we've had to deal with during this whole pandemic. To have somebody separated from their family and have to go into a nursing home where they didn't want to go was something that we felt as a case management company we needed to work really hard to sort out. So first and foremost, one of the successful things that we managed to do was set up Zoom meetings with a whole multidisciplinary team. That was really, really helpful because we could speak to the consultants. We brought our patient in, she saw real people, and everybody turned up to the meeting, which was amazing. Often when we go to MDT meetings, somebody can't make it, they have to leave early. So we had the full team there, and we were able to really understand what our clients' needs were going to be in the longer term. So the first thing we had to do was source accommodation. And I think accommodation for somebody with such catastrophic injuries is always going to be a challenge. We needed our client to have a home that she was going to be able to access. She needed to be able to get around in a wheelchair. And for those of you working in our industry, you'll know finding those places quite quickly is difficult. But we really had to work hard, because actually what we didn't want to happen was for her to be put into a nursing home where there was a huge risk to the family. They weren't allowed to visit her actually, but they were not going to have the husband go and stay in a nursing home either. So we did source accommodation for them, and they were able to live happily together while she was having some rehabilitation. So I think that was a positive. Obviously the impact of long COVID is something that we're still working towards. And if you're listening to some of the streams today, hopefully you'll understand a little bit more about some of those lasting impacts of COVID-19. So I think the thing for me, and the things that we at Coastal Case Management did, was we embraced technology. So we embraced technology as a team. We set up Microsoft Teams from home. We were already using Microsoft Teams, but it meant that we were using those with all of our clients. So we had our children that we look after, setting them up with Alexas, setting them up with all sorts of digital technology. And at times when they should have been doing things like psychology, physiotherapy, and they weren't at school, the support workers were saying to me, well, we don't know what to do with them. What should we do? So we decided that actually let's teach and train them in the use of assistive technologies, basically. So let's get them using the Alexa. So we individually purchased Alexas for a lot of our clients, and they become very much part of the safety network around them. So we showed them how easy it was for them to be able to control their own environment. We had children with severe, profound cerebral palsy that suddenly could actually touch a switch, and the whole lighting went on. So we were using different companies. Some of our children needed something like Control 4. Other people needed something as simple as an Alexa. If you had a voice, it was very easy to use Alexa. We had a blind gentleman that was put into a nursing home, and actually we were able to drop in and drop out of his nursing home, and he was able to call us, and that gave him some comfort. I think there have been some difficulties with nursing homes, with people staying in the homes and not being able to access the wider community, but I think that's probably one of the downsides of this dreadful pandemic. So I think that's focusing very much on some of the cases that I've worked with where I feel that we've had a positive impact. I think some of the difficulties with the physiotherapists, and ultimately as case managers, we manage the rehabilitation pathways. And so the financial implications, we had physiotherapists, occupational therapists, speech and language therapists phoning us in terrible states saying, we've got no income, we don't know what we're going to do. So we found ourselves in a situation that we'd never found ourselves in before. We were mentoring those physiotherapists, motivating them to perhaps give some exercise programs that they could teach to our support workers. We had support workers sleeping in and living in. So whereas we had children that might have teams of support staff, we actually said to those support workers, look, we want to minimise the traffic going in and out of the house. The parents are really frightened about COVID-19. How do you feel about a live-in position? Each and every individual that we asked actually stepped up and said, I'm really happy to do that. That protects me. It saved them going on public transport. So from our point of view, from a payroll perspective, it was very much easier. We weren't managing 17 support workers. We had people swapping and doing longer night shifts, which was really, really successful. And I think actually more cost effective in the long term. And maybe that is something in the future that we may see more of, people doing some live-in positions, which will help parents. So again, with technology, I think we were able to do our supervisions. We were able to support staff during the really difficult time. We felt very much that the use of technology for our own staff improved. 2 years ago, you wouldn't have been getting me doing Zoom presentations. You wouldn't have got me in a Teams meeting, to be honest with you. But now I've become quite familiar, and I can even use SharePoint now. So I think we're lucky at Coastal Case Management because we do have a great team of people. So our IT, our HR and payroll were able to step up to the game. And I think on reflection, looking at the COVID-19 pandemic, for case management as a whole, I think there will be areas where it's sad, There are people that haven't been able to get out, haven't been able to see people, and we mustn't forget that the human contact is so very important for people with catastrophic injuries that can't get out, and they rely on people coming to see them. It was actually really interesting for me to speak to one of my clients who is about to have an amputation, who sadly was involved in a car crash where she lost her husband and was living alone. So when I phoned her up to ask how she was doing, she actually said to me, "Nothing's changed. I couldn't go out before and I can't go out now. So for me, it's just the same." So I think for many of our clients, the restrictions of COVID-19 made them feel quite similar to other people. So they didn't feel as bad as we perhaps thought they were going to feel. A lot of my children were very happy to be at home with mum and their support workers because they didn't want to go to school. So whilst it was difficult, I could actually see that there were some real positives, and we were getting children doing their physiotherapy at home. I think there was some real differences between education, and I think, again, winners and losers. So we have some of our children privately educated that they were having video lessons every single day, good structure to their day, and it worked really, really well. But sadly, we had other children who really lacked the structure, and they not going to school, we saw that profoundly widened the gap for them. So one of our children, or one of the young people that we were looking after, he sadly, before lockdown, was finding school challenging. However, what happened to him was he was hiding without anybody really realising that he was academically struggling. He was in a mainstream school with severe autism. He had an acquired brain injury, and it was a clinical negligence case that we were working on. And actually what we found was that when he went back to school, the gap between his ability to learn had just grown so much that his behaviour in school became quite unmanageable for the school. So we've had to step up and look at, we've rewritten his education and healthcare plan because fortunately it was due for a review, and we've been able to look at alternative schools. That's another challenge. Obviously, before lockdown, it was very easy to go and look at schools, very easy to walk around, have a feel, make sure that you feel that your child is going to be safe and looked after. Now, trying to get into schools to have a visit is a challenge. And I think a difficulty for parents when they've got to make such huge decisions as to whether or not they're going to move their child from perhaps a mainstream school to a school that can meet the needs. So again, challenges, but virtual videos are now being done in schools. I think we're seeing, properties and accommodation. We've been able to view properties because estate agents have now moved to the next, into the 21st century, I guess. I think it's really, really great. I mean, it's saved me having to travel around. We looked at an amazing property when we saw the photographs. Actually, when we saw the virtual video of it, we could see that there were steps. So for us, we knew that was going to be a problem to make that wheelchair accessible. So again, I think the people that support our industry, the people that help us, they have actually stepped up to the game, and without them, we wouldn't be able to do our jobs. So, as I say, winners and losers, there are people that have done hugely well. I mean, PPE companies, I'm sure, in the beginning, it was a challenge, trying to get PPE. I think in the first month, the concern for us was huge. We could not get hold of the PPE that we needed. And I guess that made me step back and think about things, really. Yes, we were putting in private care, but those children were no less worthy of needing protection. And yet, if they were being looked after in the NHS, they were getting their PPE provided. We were having to source that and fund that, and that was, as I say, a challenge. I think those of us that knew certain people were able to get it, and we were all helping out each other, and certainly my colleagues helped us out, and they gave us their supplies that they'd managed to get hold of. So we shared PPE supplies, which was great. And I think one of the great things about being a member of CMS UK is that we were all there for each other. And again, positives for me on reflection, networking at webinars. I did a few webinars, I've been involved in a few presentations, I had the time to do that, and hopefully people enjoyed some of the webinars that CMS UK put on. So I think it's been a great learning opportunity for many case managers. Hopefully people have taken the positive side of that. And as I say, not to belittle the dreadful impact that this has had on families for those that have lost their lives to COVID-19. So I think hopefully on reflection, as this talk was all about reflections, I could say to you that there are no real winners with COVID-19, but we're learning and we need to stick together and we need to work towards finding a vaccine, which hopefully if you've listened to some of the speakers today, you'll see how close we are to that. But I just hope that everybody stays safe and that we all try as hard as we can to do our bit and keep everybody safe and protected from COVID-19. No presentation would be complete without mentioning the devastating impact that this virus has had on our charities. The invaluable work that they do supporting those with life-changing illnesses and disability is so important to both the patient and their families for whom we all work. Charities are deeply concerned at how already overstretched services will cope after the coronavirus crisis, with a crippling spike in demand expected as the true extent of the devastation caused by the pandemic becomes apparent. At this time of year, we would usually be attending charity balls, or we may have participated in sporting events to raise money and awareness of the amazing work that these charities offer. However, with the major events cancelled and the lack of economic stability during these times, it is a sad fact that there is a risk of us losing the help and support currently offered to those patients suffering from acquired brain injury, cerebral palsy, spinal cord injury, to name but a few. Please may I ask that you take a moment to consider these charities. If you have any ideas on how to raise funds and awareness, please make contact with us at the CMS UK or contact the individual organisations. Your support is so desperately needed. These are the hidden victims.